look outwards. The things that I wanted, my values, and what was important to me. The reason I was burning out was because the way I was working was not aligning with my values. And she just helped me identify what those values were. And basically, I remember making a list. She went, "What would your ideal career look like?" And I remember writing that list and thinking, God, that's not possible. And actually, a few years later, even before coming to Medic Footprints, I looked back at that list and I thought, oh my God, I've almost achieved almost everything on there.
Yeah.
Through the system, through the NHS, but just stepping back and saying, no, I'm going to do things on my terms.
So, welcome to another episode of The Power Shift from Hale House in our new podcast studio. This is it. And as you know from the last episode, not going for perfection here, trying things out, seeing how it feels, and really have this amazing opportunity to sit down with Dr. Lamia Zafrani, who is a new mother. I'll start with the best bit. New mother she's 8 months now, isn't she? She's also an obs and gynae consultant, and she provides obstetric insight to national organizations who work with female elite athletes. So I've been working with Lamia and the rest of our fellowship since April this year, and she has made some big strides. So it's a real pleasure to have her here in person, IRL, in the studio. She came right in. I texted her not long ago saying, "Do you want to come in?" And she was like, "Yes, I love it." And she's here. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Great. So today, what we're going to talk about. So, there's so much gold in Lamia's experience, even before she came on the program. But the real thing that stood out for Lamia, besides the visibility piece, which is another episode in itself, what I'd really love to focus on is how we packaged your expertise without having to do anything extra, and building a commercial offering to organizations that actually really A, get what you do, and B, say, I can see the value, and hey, we want to talk with you and work with you. And so just to talk through that journey and what needed to change whilst you balanced it as a mother. So if you are a mother or a parent, listen to this episode, and you're running your own businesses, because we see this time and time again. So as a parent myself, 2 girls, and even before I had kids, I was really passionate about creating a career that enabled me to be flexible and enjoy my family, enjoy my life, but also enjoy my work, right? Yeah. It's not just about the family. At the end of the day, I've been trained since the beginning of time to be a professional, a doctor, a high achiever, and that wasn't something that I was planning to let go of. But I still really wanted a family. And as many of you probably know, that's a juggle. It's not easy. And there's lots of shit that happens around that, right? But, you came into this journey as a really new mother. So I want to ask you, obviously you've got this amazing career already as a consultant obs and gynae, you've done your training, etc. What made you decide, right, I want to expand my medical career into industry? And at the time you decided to do it, as a new mother.
You know what? I think some of it was luck in one sense, in that I'd been following you at Medic Footprints probably since 2014, so 10 years plus. But at the time when I first discovered you, I remember it was from the point of being sort of almost burnt out, looking for other opportunities, wanting to portfolio my career. And thankfully, I didn't quit, and I carried on, and I changed things in my career and diversified what I was doing, and did kind of make more of a portfolio career. And then I think after I had Hanan, my baby,
she's so cute. She comes on our group mentoring calls. She probably knows more than we do.
She's so used to being in meetings now. But yeah, at that time, I think I was thinking around sort of how I could do less sort of in-person clinical work, but do more of what I wanted to be doing. And essentially, I just didn't know where to start or how to commercialize myself. And I came across one of your posts, and then one thing led to another, came to one of the meetings, and it just made sense and spoke to me. It was exactly what I needed. I already had like the ideas of what my expertise were, where that expertise fit in to fill the gaps that were there. All of that was very obvious to me. I just didn't know the logistics of how I would get from A, having the expertise that I have, B, to the audience that I knew I needed to target. I just didn't know how to get from A to B. And when we spoke, it just made sense that you were going to provide me with the help of the roadmap that I needed to get from A to B. And it was just a no-brainer, even though I knew I had a 3-month-old at the time. Sleep deprivation, we were talking about this before.
Real.
I think as doctors we can handle that.
We can handle that.
Sleep deprivation's fine. You know, I can do night shifts. I still do night shifts as a resident consultant.
Yeah.
We can manage this. So I thought now or never. So I might as well do it now.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that I did.
Yeah, no, I hear that journey, a journey that many a doctor has taken, especially having been through burnout, but glad that you changed the way that you did things to make it more sustainable for you. But then getting to another point where you realize, actually, I know I want to do something more. I just need that A to B joiner, so to speak, to actually make it happen. And I guess the question is, like, you know, I've known you for a few months now, and you seem like very open-minded, which is, to be honest, like quite unusual. It's quite unusual for a lot of doctors. Yeah. And so I guess the question is, like, you know, because a lot of doctors are scared to take the leap. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Whether it's the leap from clinical to something else, even though they're still doing clinical, or whether it's taking that big jump that's doing something bigger, better, riskier than they've ever done before. So what has made you, maybe it's the people you know, your background, but like, I guess it's what I usually do is like take people back to like, has there been any other events in your life where you've taken that risk of uncertainty, the unknown, and just gone for it?
I think probably looking back, it probably would be when I burnt out. I'd been, you know, someone who, typical medicals, you know, medic student, etc., gone through schooling, primary school, secondary school, no gaps, college, A-levels, medical school, no gaps, went straight into training. And I think it must have been about ST5 when, it was before COVID, I actually liked where I worked, and I never understood why I was so physically exhausted. And it was burnout happening. And essentially, at the point at which I burnt out, I had a great occupational health person who basically told me that I just needed some time off and I'd be fine and I'd be back, and that's all I needed. But in that time off that I had some coaching, careers coaching. Yeah. And that kind of helped me sort of look outwards. The things that I wanted, my values, and what was important to me. The reason I was burning out was because the way I was working was not aligning with my values. And she just helped me identify what those values were. And basically, I remember making a list. She went, what would your ideal career look like? And I remember writing that list and thinking, God, that's not possible. And actually, a few years later, even before coming to Medic Footprints, I looked back at that list and I thought, oh my God, I've almost achieved almost everything on there. Yeah. Through the system, through the NHS, but just stepping back and saying, no, I'm going to do things on my terms. I took some time out. I came back part-time into my training. And then I started doing other things. Some of the opportunities I actually found through Medic Footprints. Like just, for example, I worked as a child pediatric forensic gynecologist with the sexual assault.
Oh, did team. You?
I was doing that up until literally I went on maternity leave for a couple of years. And Fantastic. It's a harrowing job, but at the same time, somebody's got to do it. And I, in a weird way, it's enjoyable because you know you're doing something important. You're helping those children heal from trauma from the first minute you meet them. And it's so important. So it just meant I was doing more things that were valuable. So I portfolioed my career. I was doing, and then my hobbies and interests alongside that, I'd been powerlifting since my early 20s. And I particularly remember being in clinic as an ST1 and having a CrossFit athlete come in, 32 weeks pregnant, telling me that she was still training. And I was like really impressed. But at the same time, I realized that as her obstetrician, she wasn't really asking me for permission, but I also didn't know whether what she was doing was actually safe or right. And it kind of then sent me down this rabbit hole of, well, I should know this. And if I don't, and the evidence isn't there, let's go find it. And if we can't find it, let's go make the evidence. Yes. And that then sent me down a path of looking outside of my organic training in obstetrics and gynecology. And I started sort of working with people in the US, because they're ahead of us, many years ahead of us, in sort of who were already coaching athletes, pregnant athletes, and working in sort of the spheres with sort of strength and conditioning coaches, etc. And then I trained to become a coach myself for pregnant and postpartum athletes, and started sort of lecturing on the course that I had done many years later as an expert, because I was able to provide like the joint up insights that you need as an obstetrician, as well as someone who understands sport, as someone who does sport, but also someone who coaches or is able to coach. And I've kind of been doing that on the side, and it was only when I had time off on maternity leave where I thought it kind of gives you the creative space to start thinking outside the box. And I thought, well, I've been doing this anyway, can I not commercialize it and do it properly? And that was kind of my journey, I think.
I mean, there's so much there that you've described, but it also then, you know, it makes sense. You know, it makes sense because we're always interested in, like, you know, the doctors that do come in, because a lot of doctors struggle with that mindset piece and like actually investing in themselves to turn their current expertise, regardless of what stage they are in their career, whether it's like, right, even like yesterday I was at an event with Stephen Bartlett, who I met, that was on LinkedIn, guys, and I actually met up for the first time in real life with another doctor. He graduated from medicine, didn't practice, but when I first met him, he was leading a team, a healthcare or health tech team at Deloitte. Ooh. Right? And then he moved over to his current company where they're doing all sorts of things. But like the whole moral of the story, because a lot of doctors say, oh, you know, you've got to like finish, you've got to finish and then you'll be enough. I am totally like, it doesn't matter. It's really about how do you package what you have now and then commercialize it. And most importantly, we talked about this today in my previous podcast, belief that you can go and do it. And it sounds like you took that belief from your previous experiences. You were open-minded, you had that coaching to really kind of look outwards, as you described, and you've made things happen before and you'll make it happen again.
That's the plan. You know, it's funny.
And it's happened. It's happening right now as we speak.
It's funny. I remember one sort of jewel that careers coach said to me. She said, I see you doing great things in the future. You're not going to be a traditional NHS consultant. And that always stuck with me. And I was like, what does she see that I don't yet? And she's right. I'm literally, there's no part of...
Then what did you think about yourself at that stage?
I mean, at that stage, I was physically burnt out. I was trying to, I mean, you know, when you're in rock bottom, I guess one good thing about being at rock bottom is there's only one way up.
That's true. That is true.
But I was really determined. I was like, somebody else sees the potential I've got. I know I've got the potential. I'm just physically exhausted. So let's take a rest, not quit, and let's start again to an extent, but differently. And yeah, even in my NHS career, like I don't hate my NHS job. Yes, things could be a lot different and a lot better, but actually the NHS consultant post that I have, I've actually made it something that I actually really enjoy. I mean, I'm BAME engagement lead in maternity, in my trust. I'm FGM lead. I sit on equity steering groups and things. So there's a lot to my job that is not just the clinical side, which is more of like the equality, diversity, inclusion things that I enjoy doing. And that's kind of why I still enjoy my NHS job and I have no plans of quitting.
Which is great. And a lot of people think, oh, I've got to quit medicine to do something else. No, you do not, right? You do not. It's whatever you want it to be. I think a lot of doctors struggle with that concept.
It's either one or the other.
It's like very binary.
Or,
It's just not that at all. It can be literally anything you want it to be. And actually your story reminds me of every time I made a very conscious decision to be like, I remember when I was in Blackburn, when I started this particular journey and starting Medic Footprints, I woke up one morning in Blackburn, not a Blackburn girl. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the North. There's nothing wrong with the North here.
It's a very busy hospital.
But I'm from London. And so, I was moving around for the job and I said, right, I am going to move back to London. And I said, I'm going to move back to London. I'm going to have full control over my time. I'm not going to work weekends. I was a surgeon. I'm not going to work nights. And I'm also going to be able to work from home at some point, right? And so I made those very conscious, like, this is what I'm working towards. And probably about how many years later, I'm trying to think, it was probably about yeah, probably about 5 years later, because I then went into occupational medicine, and a lot of the work that I did eventually after my training was remote. Particularly when the pandemic happened and everyone was remote. I was self-employed, so in making that commitment and that conscious, this is what I want, there were then followed a series of decisions, conscious decisions, that then led to that point. So it sounds like that was you. Yeah. As in making those very conscious decisions or commitments, I like to also call it, because it's commitment to yourself. Yeah. Because that's what you know serves you. That's what you want for your life. That's something you own and have control over. And then you just made it happen by sticking to that, you know.
Yeah, essentially.
Brilliant. So we talk about developing a commercial mindset and packaging your skills without having to like do another course or degree, etc. Tell me, like, obviously you've done a lot in the last few months, a lot more than most people. So I don't think this is like standard, but we do get very early wins on in our program. So tell us like what that journey has been like, going from clinician leader in the NHS to like very well known commercial expert who's been name dropped by people that you don't know.
Yeah.
By national organizations in sports within 90 days. Not even 90 days, it was happening after a month. But there you go.
I think it's like you said, mindset shifts, because we're very much taught that your value comes from once you've got a certificate, once you've got a training from, once you've got your CCT. And to an extent, I had all those. But you need you do need a mindset shift if you're not at that point, that actually what you already have is really valuable to those that need you. Yeah. And the number of times I have this conversation with other doctors who reach out to me and want to find out a bit more, one of the things I'm having to coach them when they speak to me is, oh, but I'm not a consultant, or I'm not yet XYZ, or I haven't got anything else. And I'm like, no, you have. Like, think back, you know. And it's literally about learning your own value. Mm-hmm. And I think to an extent, our training and the way we work within the NHS, it erodes the value that you may have for you, or doesn't allow you to develop it in a way. Yeah. And it's then very difficult for you to step out of that to say, well, what do I actually already have that is valuable to industry? Yeah. And there is so much. And I have to usually point it out to people I speak to that, look, you've done this, or you're already doing this. This is already valuable. Sure. You wouldn't believe it.
So let's switch it back to you. Don't worry, doctors do it all the time. They start talking this ethereal, this other you. But let's talk about you. Like, what were your values that you then translated into a commercial package, the actual organizations? You take us through the process that you went through, those steps. So, I mean, you talked about your values. Yeah. But how did that take you to, as in, how did you connect those dots and in this process?
So I think when I joined the fellowship, I was somewhere, I mean, I knew sort of I had this other experience with athletes, working with active women, doing it in my NHS clinics anyway. And then I kind of wanted to do more in sort of the health tech sphere, but I wasn't quite sure how and what. And I remember doing the clarity work that you recommended, which again, very similar to the coaching, the careers coaching I had. And actually it just made me go back to identifying, well, what are my core values? Yeah. And for me, they were empowerment and ethics. And when I dialed into those and where my zone of genius was and what I get told that I do really well, it became really clear that actually I know that there's a huge gap in women's health, in women's sport. And actually from an empowerment side, it just made sense for me to fit myself where I was needed. So it kind of, doing that work just made me realize where I fitted in and where my sort of skills were needed.
Yeah, I mean, that clarity piece is always the most powerful, and that's why it's the start of the roadmap, the most powerful part of this journey that a lot of doctors underestimate. It sounds a little bit not wooey, but yeah. Because it's not like a technical thing. It's not exactly. But as you said, and even though you said you've done similar work before, having gone back to it, because like we go back to clarity all the time. I go back to clarity all the time because you have to reconnect with those things to then determine actually is this still what I want? Number one. Yeah. And are the actions that I'm taking connecting with those two, aligned with it? Exactly. And so once you gain that clarity, obviously we did a bit of a brainstorm, bit of a GPT, and you decided to work with national organizations, for you, what was your next step in actually making that happen? Also considering you had this 3-month-old baby.
Yeah.
Like,
so, I mean, I still feel like it was a time when, you know, I'm not also burdened with clinical work, etc. So I knew that if I wanted to be creative, yes, there's sleep deprivation. Yes, I have a small baby to look after, but actually I've still got more control over some elements of how my times work, etc. And essentially the other thing was, I remember having a chat with you, and you just told me to think big. She just went, just think big. Like, don't think what you think you can achieve. What would you want to achieve? And, you know, and that's when I said, I want to work with national organizations. I'd never thought it would be possible because I didn't know where to start. And actually it was that, you know, throw all caution to the wind, think big. What do you want?
Yeah.
And literally once I started thinking in that way, really, I just started contacting people, making sure I was visible. And that was it. I remember having one other conversation with you where I said, oh, you know, there was some international research being done, but there's no obstetrician on the panel. But actually, I can't blame them because they didn't know that I existed with my...
Yeah.
So that's on me, not on them.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
from now, it's my responsibility to make sure they know I exist.
I know. And I'm glad you've taken ownership of that, because we talk about visibility a lot, and I don't think enough doctors really own the importance of being visible. Isn't just so you can be dancing on social media and bragging about yourself, which is actually important. It actually means that you can then help the people that you're here to help, and especially with organizations, because they have access to a lot of your people. And so in helping the organizations, you can help people at scale, and we talk about scale quite a lot, and that was part of the strategy, because there's always like, do you do your one-to-ones or do you work with organizations who have your audience where you can help the organization help a lot of these athletes at the same time? And so, like, do you remember, how did you get to that conclusion as to which works for you?
Because I was doing some one-to-one work, and I said I didn't think that was I mean, I would carry on doing that. I enjoy that. But I thought, if I'm going to make myself very useful and seeing the gaps that I see, it made more sense for me to take a step back and kind of go to organizations, because then I could train, teach, etc., work with the organization so that it would filter down to more people. So it's basically to have a bigger impact, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So no, I mean, like, making a bigger impact is why I'm here, and being visible is a really important part of that, because you can help these. And again, it's like aligning yourself with organizations that do have the best or the biggest impact in the space that you are focused on. So it's great, because like, and the thing with you is that you tend to, I think, remember the conversations we've had, you know, what I love about it, because I don't like telling people things, because that doesn't land so much. But when it comes from you, that's when that growth happens. That's when that kind of self buy-in to your own journey happens. And I saw this time and time again. Like, I would mention something, and then you'd be like, oh yeah, no, yeah. Like, you'd convince yourself that you could do it, and then you'd done it.
Yeah.
You know, and which is complete gold.
I didn't wait to take action, because I thought I've been waiting. I mean, my career's been 15 plus years already. There's no time like now, so I might as well do it now.
And let's move on to the commercials. Okay, so we talked about visibility, which is another part of the roadmap, but then actually developing that commercial mindset, and actually having these conversations and making offers to organizations. So what changed for you in that process? Like, again, because a lot of doctors are thinking, I've got to go and do an MBA, I've got to build a business before I do this, or whatever it is. So what would you, I mean, actually, let's take a step back. What did you think commercial mindset was before you did the program? I mean, I know you've also got your family and business, so but still, did that definition change from when you were on the program and the actual practice of it?
Yeah, because I still always thought, I mean, growing up with my dad being a businessman, and there's nobody in medicine, I was the first person in my family, and then my brother. We all sort of went to medical school, etc. But everybody's been in business. Nobody's actually gone to university and gone through a vocational route. But what I always thought was, I'm not business minded. That's why I've chosen to go into medicine and work for someone and be paid and not have the hassle. So I don't know what I'm doing in business. When actually that's not true, because like you said, if you've got family sort of links or just being around people, it filters through to you to an extent. But what I thought business was, and what it actually is in relation to how we work as doctors in industry, is there was still some learning. And a lot of it was having conversations. Actually, you would surprise yourself how much you actually already know about business by just having the conversations and sort of speaking to other people. So as in other fellows who are already on the program, already doing things, and you kind of bounce off each other and you learn a lot more that way. And that's what I found.
Yeah. So it's I mean, just going to one of the points is about having those conversations with the organizations, understanding how they think.
Yes. I mean, to be fair, it was quite easy for me to think, well, if I'm dealing with organizations, they're thinking money, right?
Yeah.
Thinking what money can they make? What money can they save? And actually, I need to speak to them in their language.
Yes.
And yes, I'm doing things from I care about athletes. I care about female athlete health. I care about women's sport. But actually, the people sat at the top, yes, hopefully they care about those things too, but they care more about money. And let's be honest. And that's what makes the world work. So how can I make them money? How can I show them that having me on board is going to save them money or make them money?
Or improve their reputation.
Yes.
Yeah. So getting into that mindset shift. I know a lot of doctors can struggle with it, but again, like you're someone that kind of just went with it and then had, a number of different like really high value conversations. And then then there's the making the offer bit as well.
That bit's a difficult one because we're not taught to talk about money or to talk about, getting sort of asking for what you want for the service you're offering. Because if you worked in the NHS, it's very much pay scales, etc., etc.
Yeah.
But that was, I think, all of us struggle to an extent, you've probably noticed, because we're not used to talking about money, or we're not used to sort of putting offers out there. But like you said to us, just do it. You'll learn from not being perfect. You'll learn for the next one and the next one and the next one. And I think that's what I did. I pretty much made offers, sort of reworked them, changed them, made pilots, etc. Basically having a standardized offer of what I knew I was offering, but also looking into the organization, the company, etc., what their background was, what their finances were, similar to someone working with a health tech company, for example. It's the same sort of background research you do. And then again, offering them something so valuable that they can't say no.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. It's the no-brainer offer. But you can only really do a no-brainer if you really know your audience.
Exactly.
This is another reason why we very much kind of hone in on that niche. And again, a lot of doctors don't like the idea of like narrowing themselves down and they've got the world. And like, what would you say in relation to that? Like, how has that helped your journey?
I mean, I always say niche yourself down. And if you think it's not specific, if it's sort of still too, like, it's probably too wide still. And you can, don't be scared to sort of become very niched, because in that way you will be an expert, because there's nobody else doing what you do potentially. And then that intrinsically holds value, because if there's nobody else doing what you do, then there's a bit of a monopoly there.
There's a huge and I love you the way you talked about the intrinsic value as well as the extrinsic, but it is the intrinsic value that matters the most in this journey, because as long as you hold your own value, then everything that comes out of your mouth when you're speaking with other organizations, as long as you believe it, they will believe it.
You're
like saying, oh yeah, that's true, but
yeah, that is true. You come with confidence when you know what you're offering is valuable, and you'd hope that they can see that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And then another thing we talked about recently in another podcast, pricing. So deciding how much value do you attribute for the work that you're doing. And so how did you work through that? Because a lot of doctors struggle with putting a number on anything. It's not something we've had to do before. So what process did you go through to then make the decision and then just to go for it?
I remember that conversation.
Well.
I think what I did was I looked at what I was offering. And in my case, if I'm working with an organization, in an ideal world, pregnancy is 9 months, the postpartum return is another potential 9-10 months, etc. So overall, I want to be working with someone for a year minimum plus to get the value that they, that they would want to see in terms of their return on investment. So for me, I was looking at, well, ideally I'd be offering them annual retainer. So what would I want to be earning in a year, and how much work but what value am I providing in that time? And essentially I worked backwards from there.
Yeah, absolutely. But also, like, what is it that you want as well?
Yeah.
And yeah, so I mean that's a really great methodology. Again, it always starts with you. It always starts with your own clarity.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about it. And I mean, how, again, let's go to like the emotional side of this, because obviously we've got the roadmap of where we've actually gone, but you've been through a lot.
Yeah.
You know, and in a very short, well, actually, like, you've gone through the pregnancy and then like motherhood, and like that hasn't stopped, let's be fair.
No.
You know, you've got an 8-month-old. Exactly. And so emotionally, how have you held like both of them? Like obviously, like developing a new arm to your career whilst being a mother for the first time.
In a way, I've kind of keep telling myself failure is not an option. It's just not an option. So if I'm going at it with failure is not an option, I have no choice but to carry on. But in a way, there's always going to be challenges that you have. There's always going to be, whether you're working clinically or whether you're not, etc. And I step back and think, well, at least I'm not currently working clinically, so I have time that I may not have again, in the same way.
Yeah.
What am I going to do to maximize this? And I keep reminding myself that everything that's happening is temporary, whether it's challenges with my baby, challenges with recovering myself postpartum as a recreational athlete. So now I've got the lived experience that I've been working with my athletes. I'm going through the same challenges that I expect my athletes are going through as well. So having to juggle all of that, it's just reminding yourself it's all temporary. So failure is not an option, and giving up is not an option, because it's temporary. Things are going to change, and just keep going. And that's literally, I have to tell myself every day.
Such an important mantra to have. But do you think some people might see it as, again, like, you know, might see it as actually like that's like a burnout pathway?
Yeah, very interesting, because I actually didn't think of it like that. I mean, I don't know. I feel very different now than pre-burnout. So I know I'm definitely doing something differently. I think I definitely have better boundaries.
Right, okay.
So even though I'm telling myself failure is not an option, everything is temporary, keep going, it's still within the caveat of certain boundaries.
Sure.
So like we've talked about this. How do I find time to go to the gym still? I do, because that's actually a recovery activity for my mental health, my physical health, etc. So making sure that you have still got things in place to protect yourself.
Yeah.
But also I still feel more in control. I think that's the big thing. Previously, during the burnout, it was very much, I'm in a training pathway. Oh, this is happening, that's happening. I don't have control.
Everything's happening to me.
Yeah. Whereas at the moment, yes, things can be challenging, but I do have the control to actually put a pause on things. And I went away on holiday, had a break, etc. You can't just do that when you work for someone to an extent. You have to apply for sick leave and and all of it. So to an extent,
sick leave to go on holiday. Sometimes.
But as in, if you're unwell, etc.
Yeah, no, of course.
Here, if I was feeling I remember feeling a bit exhausted at one point, and I just said, you know what, it's fine, I'll just take a bit of a break.
Yeah.
And it's having that control. You've got some control over your time. So no, I didn't get to the point where I'm burning myself out again.
Yeah.
I've actually got control to say, no, I can see that this is a bit too much, but we're not quitting. We're just stepping back a bit, and everything's still there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think boundaries and having control is what makes it different.
Yeah, no, it does. And actually I was talking earlier on about with my own therapist about boundaries, and how, especially when I came out of traditional medicine, one of the things I lacked was boundaries of my time. And I was doing everything anytime and everywhere, and working all the hours and going on holiday as well, and enjoying traveling, but not really valuing my time or putting proper value to my time still, because that was stuff I inherited from traditional medicine, where yes, you've got your contractual hours. I'm putting my fingers up for those of you that can't see. I'm doing the whole rabbit fingers, contractual hours, but actually a lot of work that we do is outside of those hours.
And I think the worst thing is when you resent the fact that you're doing it. I think that's the big thing. Whereas here, I know that if I'm doing work at 2 a.m. towards my business, it's because I want to be doing it.
Yeah, we've had so many WhatsApp messages at 2 a.m. Scary
like,
number.
Okay?
Yeah. Like, what are you doing online? What are you doing online?
I think that's the difference.
Yeah.
When you feel like you're almost, when you resent the fact that you're doing extra work.
Yeah, it's not.
It comes from a different place.
Choice. Yeah.
Whereas this, I'm not resentful that I'm doing this.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy that I'm doing this.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it might look the same from the outside, but actually the internal processes that are happening towards it are very different.
Again, the internal, just going back to that, always the internal. And so in this journey, the final question is like the challenges. What have been the biggest challenges that you faced in this journey, and how have you addressed them?
I think one of them is mindset. To an extent, even though I've been quite lucky in that I've been able to switch my mindset and take on the suggestions that people make, etc.
Mm-hmm.
There's still always mindset shifts that need to happen, and one around money is always one that medics suffer from. The other one is, interestingly, I've never had imposter syndrome. Because I've never felt like an imposter. I know that I'm an obs and gynae consultant. I know I worked hard for that. I know what I'm doing. But when you venture into business and it's not necessarily something you've done before in the exact way that you're trying to, there's been times where I've thought, do I actually know? Do I know what I'm doing in this particular sphere, etc.? And it's the same. You just have to know that what you're doing, you know what you're doing, and by doing something, you're going to learn from it, reflect, and change how you work. So the best way to get over imposter syndrome is just to do it.
That is true. And again, a lot of doctors don't really identify with like the actual taking action and gaining clarity and results from that action, because it feels too hard, it feels uncertain, it feels risky, and they tend to lean more into their imposter syndrome than not. And it's interesting because I see these patterns, like I'm always watching and supporting doctors on the program, but it's also like I'm always looking at who's getting their results, who's not so quickly, who's a bit slower on the journey. Everyone's on their timeline, not a competition, but it is those doctors who are willing to feel the fear and do it anyway, and actually just take that action and just be happy to get whatever results. And so actually the win is in the action taking, not so much the outcome.
And I think that's for doctors, that's very uncomfortable, because in clinical medicine, you don't take risks because people die. Potentially. Yeah, exactly. That's the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
And if you come from like you said, nobody's going to necessarily die.
They're not. Sorry, guys. This is not medicine.
Yeah, it's not clinical medicine. So actually, the risk is a lot lower. And actually the biggest risk is you might feel a bit bad, you might feel a bit rejected, etc. But actually nobody's died.
And it's so difficult for us to separate those and actually put it into that context. And I find myself saying it so many times, like, no one's going to die with this. It's literally just send a message. Just say, hey, do you get my message? Like literally, like we have this whole follow-up thing where like literally someone, like we get this like pretty much every week. Someone says, oh, come on the Ask Me Anything. They say, I reached out to this person, I haven't heard back, they must hate me. They hated my offer, or they didn't like what I said, and then you end up in this fantasy world.
He's made up,
and then I'm like,
have you contacted
just contact them again?
Honestly,
like, no.
Honestly, some of the biggest things I've achieved have been through follow-ups.
Follow-ups.
Just, even if it's been a while, you've forgotten, they've forgotten.
Yeah.
It's, like you said, until someone tells you to go away.
Yeah, it's
you're
the
not
magic bullet.
Them.
It's honestly, everyone, if you reach out to someone and they haven't got back to you, you have to reach out again, right? And they're like, oh, how long should I wait? That's another thing. How long should I wait? And it's like, however long you think is necessary. It could be the next day, it could be the next week, whatever it is. Like, you decide, you're a human being, you're an adult. They're like, oh, I don't want to spam anyone, but unless someone says, can you please stop contacting me, like delete like your memory of me completely, which no one ever does, by the way. Like, you keep going, and if this person is really important to you, and this is the unwritten rules in industry, this person is important enough, they expect you to follow up. That's like a professional move. What would you say about that?
Yeah, I think you're right. And actually, the more busy I get, I kind of understand that now, because genuinely, I will sometimes go, yeah, I need to reply to that message, and I'll forget. Yeah. And actually, when they've reached out to me again, I've gone, I'm glad they did, because actually I would have forgotten, or would have waited another. So now I'm starting to understand that, and I'm way more comfortable about following up, because I do it myself.
Yeah. Again, it's that experience of like, it's being on both sides to then understand, okay, this is the unwritten rule of how things work now, and contacting someone isn't spamming. It's a professional move. Following up is a professional move. And we always say, like, most people get their results after multiple follow-ups, not just one conversation. It has, you know, this is all business relationships, industry relationships. That's what it's all about. So final point, like, for doctors who are watching, listening, and they're like, yeah, but she's not me, I'm not her, you know, like, you know, that she can do it, but I can't. Like, what would you say to them?
I would say challenge the mindset of why you think you can't. Like, I am no different to any other doctor, really, other than I've just taken action based on ideas that I had. I didn't wait to be given permission to, you know, to do X, Y, Z. I kind of did it and then evaluated the action later, if that makes sense. So
Absolutely.
Yeah, so just do it.
Yeah, it honestly, guys, and I say this time and time again, it's about taking action. It's about doing something. It does, and to be clear, that something does not necessarily have to be the right thing. In fact, it's guaranteed that it won't be perfect. And if you get an amazing result at the beginning, that's like a bonus, right? But you'll only get better once you start doing something. That's a reality of it. And again, it's more about you and getting into that practice of the doing. Just like we talk, like, for example, creating your first offer is easier than actually putting it out. And then following it up and all of those things. But once you get into the practice of it, it's just like a no-brainer. Just like, and always like connect us back to like when we did our first history. We were like looking at, oh, actually I forgot to say that bit, and what's the next bit. But then after the practice, you're not even thinking about it. You don't care if you fudge up, because no one knows, no one cares, right? And no one cares. And so again, like that perfectionism piece that we all carry, it's just not worth it, because it actually costs more to be perfect than it does not to. Exactly. So I want to say thank you so much for actually coming into the studio at like not much notice in this imperfect setting that we're doing kind of on a webcam, and really sharing your story with the community. And so if people want to reach out to you, how do they best get hold of you?
You can find me on LinkedIn. They can find me on my website, or they can actually just email me.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Lamia.
Thank you.